Hi guys, it's Miss Brenner. I hope you guys are both doing well and having fun. I just wanted to go over the agenda for week 11. So if we open up week 11, you can see that when we get back from break, we're going to be starting the dystopian unit. So we're going to cover some dystopian notes, and it is quite long. Both of these videos are between, I think, 15 and 20 minutes. So just keep that in mind when you're working on this. There is a note sheet that I'd like you to complete. So as you're watching the Ed puzzles, you just pause the Ed puzzle and go and complete the notes, because I reference them quite frequently as we read Brave New World and as we read a lot of the different short stories. And it's typically content that hasn't been covered in prior language arts courses. So please just make sure that you complete this note sheet so that way it's saved in your Google Drive. And if we are talking and I reference something and you're not sure what it is, we can at least go back and look at it really quickly. So we have our Dystopian Notes 1, which is just going to go over the different types of dystopias, and then Dystopian Notes 2, which is going to go over the different types of dystopian controls that we see in a lot of movies, video games, and novels. So we're hopefully going to get that done Monday and Tuesday of the 5th through the 9th of April. Wednesday, there's a creative writing assignment. Thursday, we are going to read, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Maneki Neko. So it's a Japanese style story about a dystopian world. I'll be completely honest, out of all the dystopian short stories I cover, this is one that I'm not actually sure that I would be super unhappy living in. There are lots of other dystopian stories, and usually right away we can say to ourselves, yeah, that just sounds awful. Why would anybody want to live in that manner? But actually, in this one, it's hard for me to say that I wouldn't be content in the situation. So there is a worksheet 1, which I should have had these open before. So in worksheet 1, you are going to be completing a foreshadowing chart like we've been doing in the past, just to try and make some predictions as to how you think the society functions and other things of that manner. And then we are also looking at the dystopian controls. So this is going to be in part 2 of the notes, but there's 9 different dystopian controls. I list them here for you just in case when you're working on this, so you don't have to go back to the Ed puzzle if you don't remember. However, when you are taking notes, please do not just jot down what these say. Try and give yourself some kind of background as to what it means. Like, you might not understand what it means when it says the natural world is banished and distrusted for number 7. So try and jot yourself down some notes in the notes section, so that way that makes a little bit more sense. I had to condense these down so that way it kind of fits on a slide and it fits in this worksheet. But make sure you give yourself enough detail that when you're reading stories, you can make those connections as to how governments, religions, technology, and I'm going to forget the other one, corporations, are going to be overly controlling. They are the 4 major groups that tend to build up a dystopia for different reasons, typically power. Alright, so if we go back into week 11, and worksheet 2 is 2 different groupings of literary lenses. So after you've read Maneki Neko, I really hope I'm not slaughtering that name, we're looking at the psychological lens, and we're going to look at the new critical lens. You are welcome to look at the gender lens and to look at the classist lens. However, I was trying to make it a little bit more on the simple side, considering the fact that we are covering all new topic with dystopian notes. I didn't want to overwhelm anybody with too much cross-examination of different literary lenses on top of also trying to figure out the dystopian controls. So we stuck with psychological and new critical. So for psychological lens, we're looking at the behaviors of the citizens. Are they encouraged by the network, and does this still count as kindness? So we did reference Maneki Neko in Cat Pictures Please when we talked about that in the technology unit, and we talked about AI. we talked about this story. The AI in Cat Pictures Please references Maneki Neko, saying that she wishes the world could function more like this story. So you're getting a little bit better of an idea as to what she wishes the world would look like, which might impact your view on that story. But for right now, we are just talking about, does kindness count if kindness was pre-planned? Much like we do with small children, that when they behave in a way that is what we consider proper manners, we reward them. Maybe with a piece of candy, maybe with a bright, colorful sticker, but we reward them to try and encourage the continuation of that behavior. All right. The next psychological one is, in the story, members of society give up their freedom to make choices in order to function as a more kind working unit. Is this perfection? Is there a downside to this? And like I said before, there's always a downside to everything, but it is your opinion whether you think you could survive in this society or not, and it might come down to different reasons for you. New critical lens, we are looking at the symbolic nature of the network itself, as far as the idea of free will versus happiness. Those are two very complicated situations, and it's hard to choose between them, but that's the point of the story, is to make a choice. And then for new critical, the last thing we're focusing on is central theme. So I'm asking you to come up with a theme for the story that has to do with a repetition of motifs. So motifs are singular words that are central to the story. So happiness, community, free will are all motifs. They do not count as themes because a theme is a full sentence that is arguable and addresses a central motif. So it goes, motif is tiny, but it is a central idea, and then theme is the exaggeration of that central idea that is an arguable statement. So it starts to show your opinion and values on that motif. So we're going to pick one question from each of the categories. So in total, you'd have 2 chosen, which would be a total of 20 sentences, because each one should be a minimum of 10 sentences with evidence from the story. All right, so we're going to go back into week 11. Activity 4, we are finishing up these dystopian notes. Dystopian Notes 3 is going to be focusing on our novel that we're going to get started on in week 12. We're going to be starting Brave New World. So the dystopian notes are going to go over the history behind Brave New World, the author, the purpose of the story, how it relates to the modern world, and elements of that nature. That is all going to be in Dystopian Notes 3, and I do ask you to complete this worksheet so that way we can reference it. Because there are a lot of different words and terms and historical events and scientific discoveries in the book that are referenced, but he makes the assumption that you already know what they are without any kind of background knowledge given by the author. So I try to make sure that you are on the same page with all those different events and scientific discoveries, all the things that are being thrown at you in the novel. So please make sure that you complete that worksheet so as we go through the novel, we can go back and reference it and make those connections. Lastly, we have silent reading. Our silent reading reflection for week 11 is to talk about your favorite character from your silent reading book. What makes that character unique, and why do you connect to this character on a personal level? I would like you to include 3 examples as to why you enjoy the character as much as you do from your current reading. And then to comment on one other student's post in an etiquette-appropriate manner. If you have a book that is like an autobiography or a biography, and therefore there's really only one character, tell me what you do or do not like about that person. If you are reading nonfiction, like maybe it's a history, like maybe it's about historical events, or maybe it's like newspapers, talk to me. We will come up with a different solution. But I really just want to hear about what you are reading and get a better understanding as to why you like it or why you don't like it. Okay? Alrighty, guys. I hope you have a great trip. Email me if any of the things aren't working. I am making this a good bit in advance, so sometimes the Edpuzzles stop working. So just let me know. I went through, everything seemed to be working currently on the 31st of March, but like I said, sometimes things don't function when we come back. So, anyway, I hope you guys have a great trip, and I can't wait to hear about it when you get back. Bye, guys.